I hope you. Oh, okay, continue. So yeah, this session is being recorded. So hi everyone, my name is Hina, and I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, and a big thank you to the Guild of Students for inviting me to speak on this topic today. So I'm the Race Equality Officer at Keele University. So just do a little bit, just a very short introduction. And I've worked in different kind of institutions before working at Keele, and I've worked in a few different areas as well, the student life cycle. So I've worked in student advice and also in student outreach. And the session that I'm going to do with you today, I wanted to take it a little bit of a different route than everybody else. I know the conference is called Decolonisation in Practice, but just from my experience working in anti-racist work as a student and now as a staff member, I thought this session might be quite useful for students just to try and help you create like a practical well-being guide. So hopefully it will be useful for you, and there'll be a Q&A at the end where, feel free to ask loads of questions and engage in the discussion. So the session objectives today, hopefully after this session, you'll be able to equip yourself with some quite practical tips for looking after yourself. You'll be able to identify your boundaries when it comes to engaging in anti-racist work. You'll be able to understand how to create an effective self-care and well-being plan. And again, the overall aim of this session really is to reinforce the importance of looking after yourself, because it's something that I think we often look over and dismiss when we're engaging in anti-racist work. Just a little bit about what we're doing at Keele before I do start this session. This just in case this helps anybody with any a bit of inspiration. So at Keele, we have the Decolonise Keele Network, which is a network set up and led by students, and they arrange loads of different events, and they also work with us staff at the university on things like the Decolonising the Curriculum initiative. Also at Keele, we've signed up to the Race Equality Charter and have a bronze award, and we're working on the subsequent student and staff action plans. So there's loads of different initiatives within that we're working on. One big one is the Decolonising the Curriculum agenda. So at Keele, back in July, we held a Decolonise the Curriculum web event for staff, which was really successful. We had around over 100 academics attend from loads of different faculties, and I want to say that I think we had nearly at least one individual member of academic staff from each programme across the university attend that, and that was to try and help them understand what decolonise is and start thinking about implementation. And then later on this year, I'm set to deliver 3 faculty-specific workshops, again, about the practicalities of decolonise. So that kind of work is really well on its way at Keele. We also have loads of staff training and modules and workshops that we're currently developing. We've also developed a microaggressions video, which is fantastic. If you've not seen it, check it out. Just go to Keele Microaggressions on YouTube. And on the staff side of things, because I do think it's important to highlight what we're doing for staff as well. We've reviewed and updated our staff dignity and respect policy, and we're looking also into it's establishing like a reporting tool, anonymous or not anonymous, and the establishment of my role. So I've only been in my role 1 month today, and so yeah, I'm getting stuck in with lots of different things. So we'll get stuck in with the tips. Sorry, before that, you might be thinking, well, why do I need to look after myself? Why is this important when engaging in anti-racist work? And as cliche as it may be to say, you really cannot pour from an empty cup. You need to be feeling okay within yourself before you engage in any kind of work, not just in anti-racist work. It could be your academic side of things. It could be a job that you might have, whatever it is, to help you, engage in that work and give your best to it. It's important that you look after yourself and nurture yourself first and foremost. And often when we hear the word self-care, we think of things like bubble baths and we think of yoga, and there's nothing wrong with those things. Those are perfect, and if that's what you need to do to help yourself, that's great. But what I really want to emphasize is that self-care isn't a backup emergency plan. It's a system of care and practice. It's things that you embed into your daily routine and become part of your everyday that help you to avoid that burnout in the long term. So it's like a prevention is better than cure. That's the idea of self-care. And it's also important to highlight that it's not going to look the same for everyone, depending on, you as an individual. Your self-care plan, your well-being plan will look quite different, but it's about taking that mindful action, incorporating it into your daily routine. And it's important as well for various communities, whatever community you're from, and you're fighting against injustices and you're fighting, for equal rights, liberation, etc. It does take a toll, and sometimes instead of, you keep plowing on with this work and keep going, and then have that burnout, if you are able to embed some of these good practices early on, overall in the long term, it will help you in engaging in this work. And it's okay to take that step back and think, you know what, I need to just give myself a day, a week off from this work to make myself feel better. So I've got about 10 tips for you on kind of helping to avoid burnout. So we'll start with the first one, getting to know yourself. Now you may think this is a little bit airy fairy, it's a little bit abstract. But I promise you, if you actually sit down and you take the time to get to know yourself, there are lots and lots of benefits of this. To enable to, think about what works best for you in starting a well-being self-care plan, you need to think about the kind of person that you are and what works for you. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not going to say I know the theory of the self very well, but there are loads of different online personality quizzes that you can take that can help you to understand yourself better. And I've got some questions as well that I've got on the screen here, and you can ask yourself questions again to try and help you get to know yourself and understand yourself. So, what interactions and tasks feel quite taxing for you? How does doing X, Y, and Z make you feel? So just say, for example, you go and you have a meeting with colleagues or meeting with university staff. After that meeting, just take 5 minutes in a little journal or type it up, whatever's easier for you. Reflect on how you feel after that meeting. Do you feel really kind of invigorated and passionate, or does that wear you out quite a lot? It's really important to kind of monitor and evaluate the interactions that you're having and seeing how they make you feel, because again, that can help you to create that well-being plan. And once you get to know yourself, then you can have a better understanding of setting those boundaries. And you also need to think about things, what might trigger you, what might be boundaries for you that you won't cross. You need to also think about your weaknesses, but also your strengths. So if you know that you're an extroverted person, after a day of a conference, socializing with your friends as a kind of a form of relaxation might work best for you. But if you're like me, I'm an introverted person, I know that after this conference, I'm probably going to need a cup of tea and probably watch an episode of Avatar for 20 minutes, just so that I can relax. Because I've taken the time, I've got to know myself. I know that that's what works for me. So that's important. It's important, first of all, to invest a little bit of time. I'm not saying you have to be, a seasoned psychologist on this, but just get to know yourself a little bit better. Keep a notebook, voice note on your phone, whatever works best for you, how you feel after certain interactions, because I know it seems, like I said, a little bit abstract, a little bit different, but in the long term, you'll really benefit from it. So the next kind of tip I have for you is, it's easier said than done, but it's don't feel guilty for taking time out for you. And this is something that we constantly need to reiterate, and I even need to reiterate for myself. So going back to one of the earlier slides, it's really important that you do take that time out for you. And again, you can't pour from that empty cup. You need to be, you want to give your all to this work. And if you're a kind of person who's quite big on scheduling, organization, schedule in breaks. And it doesn't have to be, big, long break. It can just be ensuring that you actually take a lunch break, or you ensure that you go and take a walk, or just do something, whatever it works for you. Make sure that you have that downtime where you can, don't not have to think about engaging in this kind of work, because it can be really taxing. And it's very easy as well nowadays, because of social media, to see what so and so doing, or what this institution is doing, and what that institution's doing. Use that as a motivator, not a demotivator. You don't want to get into that mindset of, oh no, on my days, what am I going to do? They're doing this, they're doing that, what am I doing? don't try not to allow yourself to get into that state. Rather think about it, oh wow, Birmingham are doing that. That's fantastic. I wonder how we can work with them, or I can get some tips from them. But don't let it get you down, because you have to look after yourself first and foremost. And you don't have to justify yourself to anyone as well. You don't have to justify looking after yourself. You need to prioritize yourself and your well-being first and foremost. And the last point I'm going to make on this tip is that, be really kind in how you speak to yourself. Because if you are in your own head, you're thinking, oh, I've not done this, I'm such a failure, the movement is good, the network at my university, my institution, my student union are going to feel really bad. You need to turn those negative thoughts into positive ones. And it can be come in different ways. So for example, it can be you say it out loud, you write it on a whiteboard, you listen to it, you record yourself in a voice note, listen to it back, put post-it notes up. Positive affirmation is really, really important when engaging in this work. And I think as well, for Black, Asian, people of color who are engaging in anti-racist work particularly, I understand that we can feel that extra layer of guilt because we are kind of have that personal connection to doing this work. And even though when I say, take some time and not engage in it, I also understand that because of the, your identity might be linked to that work, it's very difficult to separate. So as much as you can, do take that time out and do something that is completely different so that you can, and it keeps you motivated as well. The next tip that I have for you is check in with yourself. Is renewing your intention. And again, you might think, these are really very, very abstract ideas. But again, these are things that I find that have really helped me to engage in this work. So what I mean by renewing your intention is like checking in with yourself when things get tough. And to be honest, not even when things get tough, but just checking in with yourself. Because you may be engaging in this work for a year, 2 years, that's a long time, or even potentially longer. And sometimes you can lose that motivation and you can lose that passion. But if you remind yourself of the reason that you're doing what you're doing, that can really help kind of keeping you reinvigorated and reignite that passion. And it also helps to keep you in check and hold yourself accountable. So what I mean by that is, before accepting to speak at this conference, for example, I got the message and I was thinking, okay, I want to accept this, but what's my why? I want to make sure that my intention is in the right place for doing this work, because that's also really important. And by renewing your intention, that's a really good way to keep yourself in check. And it also helps when you've got big meetings coming up, before you start a project, before I came onto this conference. If you just take 5 minutes, for 5-10 minutes before you got a meeting, conference, going to start a project, going to write a lengthy email, whatever it is that's related to this work, take that 5 minutes and just kind of center yourself, sit, stand, whatever works for you. You can close your eyes, keep them open, and say your intention out loud. Say, you know what? I'm going to go into this meeting and this is what I'm going to say. And this is the reason why I'm doing this and why I'm engaging in this work. And it will take different forms for different people. So for example, I'm Muslim and I'm very proud of the fact that I'm a Muslim. And I absolutely love my faith, and because justice is such an important part of that. And that's where I derive a lot of my strength from in engaging in this work. So before an important meeting, I will take 5 minutes and I will just say a short prayer and again, renew my intention for why I'm doing this work. So the next point that I have for you is that there are strength in numbers. So this is again something that it's fantastic that we've got so many people who are engaging in this conference over the next few days, and who we've got different people from different institutions who are willing to give their time and to help and educate others. That shows that there really is strength in numbers when it comes to doing this work. But I also understand that sometimes it may feel like you're doing this work all on your own, and you feel like you've got the responsibility of to fight anti-racism at your institution is not meant to be just on you. if you are finding that you feel like you're doing this work on your own, try and seek out like-minded people who can help you. There probably already is some sort of group. Join that group. And it's also important to say that as well. You have to divide up the work and take into consideration people's responsibilities, because we are human beings, we're individuals with competing priorities. We've got academic life, personal life, social life, work life. We've got loads of other things going on. So we have to remember and be kind to ourselves and one another, and remember that, okay, at this time of the year, we might have some of our, medic students who are engaged in this work who are going to be more busy than other people, for example. So it's about, dividing up the work, making sure you're not overburdening one particular person, or even a group of people when it comes to doing this work. And step up and offer it if someone is struggling. Say someone's going through a tough time and, you're on top of everything and you could take on a little bit more work. Step up, offer help, because I'm sure if and when the tables are turned, that person will also do the same for you. And I think it's also really important to note that, again, for Black, brown, people of color, in general, we have to, be really careful where we direct our energies. We don't want, anti-racist work to be done by our communities alone, because it shouldn't be just done by our communities alone. We don't benefit from the systems that are in place, right? But our white allies do, and it's important that they also shoulder some of this burden. So again, it's not just about us doing this work; it's about them also stepping up. And it's important to keep in mind, again, an institution doesn't change overnight. I've worked in quite a few institutions, and whilst anti-racist work may not have always been a direct focus of mine, I've always worked on kind of side projects that have been to do with the anti-racist initiatives. And what I would say from my experience is that these things do take time. And I understand that as a student, it can be frustrating, because you may be at a university for 3, 4, or even 5 years, potentially even longer. And the change may not be coming as quick as you might hope for, but it will come. And sometimes it's not until we've actually left an institution that you actually see the fruits of your labor, I want to say. So it's almost like you're leaving a legacy. So remember that. And, the interventions that you do, the initiatives that you take, they don't have to be really big and bold campaigns all the time. It can be those small but consistent things that can actually bring about that biggest change. So the next tip I have for you, and kind of about self-care and better than engaging in anti-racist work, it's totally okay to say no. Like I said before, you're an individual with varying responsibilities at different times of year. If you came to me and said this conference is going on in Ramadan, the month of fasting in the Muslim calendar, I would have had to really seriously consider, like, oh, can I do this? Because talking for an hour without some water, that's quite difficult, for example. So whatever your competing priorities are, it's okay to sometimes say, you know what, I'm going to sit this one out. Like, it's too difficult for me, for example. Again, setting those boundaries is really important. And if you are kind of new to this work, setting those boundaries from the get-go is great, because then people know, okay, those are that person's boundaries. I'm not saying it's impossible to work back from that, but just say, for example, you are stretching yourself. Sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to work back and say, no, I'm not going to do this. But saying no is something that's so important. It's something that I've had to really, really learn and practice, and say, no, I'm not going to do that. It's okay. It's totally okay to say that. And it's okay not to feel guilty. You shouldn't feel guilty about it either. Number 6 in my tips is keep learning. I think, if we've been engaged in this work for a while, we may think, we're a seasoned activist, we know it all, we've read everything, we've listened to everything, we've watched everything. But I think this is where we need to be a little bit careful and not fall into the trap of thinking, well, I know everything, I don't need to do anything else. Being in a constant state of learning. And what I mean by that is not just by reading, not just by watching things online and podcasts, etc. I mean your daily interactions when you're engaging in this work. So, for example, say you have a meeting with, I don't know, a university society or university committee, and it doesn't go the way that you want. Instead, of maybe just thinking, oh, that was terrible, and leaving it at that. Again, take some time after the meeting, think about what maybe you could have done better and how you would change things, and then also mm, team up with the people who are engaged in that work, and come together and say, okay, this is what I thought went wrong, and then you can share your ideas and you can create an action plan for hopefully the next time it will go better. That's really important. So yeah, see interactions as learning opportunities, because that's really important. And listen, it's really important to listen to people's lived experiences, because every individual's story into how they came to engage in this work or whatever it might be is going to be different. It's not going to be one and the same. So yeah, how, you say how this might help burnout as well. Again, if you're lacking in that passion, that motivation, just say you are lagging a little bit. Sometimes by reading something, by watching, by listening to someone's story, again, it might kind of reignite, like, oh, you know what, I know I've been finding things difficult recently, but that speech, that podcast, that TV show, documentary, whatever it might be, that really just, that was that kind of positivity that I just needed for that day. The next one is, you don't have to have all the answers. We are all learning, we're all growing through life together. We are all learning more and more about this movement, and there's no one size fits all, I think, when it comes to engaging in this work and implementing anti-racist initiatives into our institutions, because every institution is different. So it's going to be a learning curve for everyone. It's going to be trial and error. And you don't have to know everything. There's no onus on you to have to apologize, to have to know everything. It's totally okay for you to say, you know what, I'm not sure about that. I can research and get back to you. Or if you know somebody who'd be happy to answer that question, you could be like, you know what, I don't know, but my friend here does, and direct the question onto them. Saying I don't know is actually quite a powerful thing, because I know sometimes in the movement it's quite difficult to say I'm not sure on that one, but sometimes it's actually better to take that moment, think about it, reflect, and think, you know what, now I can answer you properly. The next is avoiding internet trolls. So when I was thinking about these tips, I was thinking about, how social media plays a really, really big part of engaging in this work, and how we use it a lot to promote things. And it is really, it's fantastic, because obviously, look, we were all online now, but we also have to be careful. And, I've done it, we scroll onto an article, we see the comments section, and you see something that absolutely enrages you and you engage. I don't know if it really makes a difference. If someone has taken the time out of their day to leave a horrible remark on a comment section on an article, are they really going to be prepared to listen to you, a stranger on the internet? Potentially, but also potentially not. And again, it's about where you're putting your energy, where you're directing that energy. You don't want to sometimes feed that kind of negativity. Sometimes it's not helpful. Sometimes you might feel like it's almost like cathartic, and once you've replied, that's fine. But if you are going to engage with the internet trolls, as I call them, what I will say is that make sure you limit your time doing this. Don't spend too long on it. Sometimes I know when it's a Twitter thread and you've got loads of people going off on the Twitter thread, try and just mute the notifications, whatever you can do. I'm not 100% great with Twitter, so I'm not sure how to do that, but if anyone does know, yeah, make sure you mute those notifications and just limit your interaction with these people. Some people might engage in very meaningful conversation, but others may not. And again, personally, I don't see it as a valuable use of time. But again, that's just my personal opinion. So the next tip is seeking help. Don't be embarrassed to seek help. It's really important that, especially for minority communities, I know that there is still stigma in going and seeking therapy and counselling. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's really important. And again, to avoid that burnout in the long term, there's nothing wrong with signing up to counselling earlier than potentially you quote unquote need it. Because I understand as well that at the moment, counselling, therapists, mental health practitioners, waiting lists for to see these people can be quite long. So if you sign up today, again, it might take a month or even potentially a little bit longer until you're able to see someone. So, and by then you might be thinking, I need that a little bit more help. But luckily you've already signed up earlier, so you get that help quicker. And, speaking to someone is a fantastic way to understand your feelings and to help with your own personal healing. And I think if you can, where possible, seeking out culturally competent therapists, counselors, mental health practitioners is really important, because I understand that for minority communities, there is that extra layer of fear, because you're like, well, will this person, sorry, that was my front door as well, will this person fully understand my cultural background and where I'm coming from with that. Number 10 is kind of how to create the self-care plan. So it is going to be trial and error. You're going to need to do some research. You're going to need to do some reading. Sorry, that is my front door. So yeah, I would say keep a journal, keep a notebook. That's really important. So you can note things down really quickly. Just like I said, when you're engaging in those different interactions. And if you're a planner and you like to be organized, then I'd also say keep a diary, keep a timetable. And you can either do that online, or you can do that, you can draw one, you can print one out, whatever works for you, just try and keep one. I think practicing gratitude is also a really good way to avoid burnout, and that can be either, do it in the morning, the evening, whatever time works for you. There is a free gratitude app on the iPhone App Store that I personally use. I mean, I use the free version, but what's really good is that every Sunday at 9 o'clock, it reminds me just to take 5 minutes and just reflect and engage in some gratitude. And that can really help with, again, motivation and reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing. Do activities that help you switch off and relax. So do things that genuinely make you and your soul happy. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing and think, oh, I have to do that, I have to do this. No, do whatever makes you happy, and don't worry about what anyone else says. This is one that I do and I really like it. It's keeping a folder in your inbox for happy emails. So sometimes when you are down, when you have had a little bit of a bad day, sometimes keeping this inbox and reading through these emails can be really, really quite nice. So it doesn't have to be just, people complimenting you, for example. It can just be, you know what, that email really made me smile. It can be a funny meme that, someone's shared with you. Whatever it is that makes you smile, just stick it in that inbox. And again, with self-care, it's not all just about kind of yoga, bubble baths, etc. It is about keeping yourself in check, holding yourself to account, and also disciplining yourself. I think that's a really important part of self-care as well. And like I said, renewing your intention, that tip 3, really helps you to do that. Again, when you're creating a self-care plan, there's some really, really key things that you need to think about when you're creating it. So sleep, exercise, nutrition, hydration, taking breaks in your day. And again, you need to work out whatever works best for you, what type of exercise you like doing, going for a walk, just even getting outside, doing some stretches, with your nutrition, again, whatever works best for you and your nutrition. And hydration, just make sure you hydrate. That's also really important. And taking breaks, I'm so bad at this, but it's so important to take some breaks in your day, get outside on your lunch break, wrap up warm because it's getting into winter now. But yeah, whatever helps you to relax, engage in that. I didn't want to make this too long because I understand Zoom fatigue is real at the moment. So that's kind of all I have for now, but I'm really happy to take any questions and engage in some discussion. And I really want to thank you again for listening and engaging, and to the organisers for inviting me today. If you've got any questions, I think, is there a Q&A box?
Thanks for that, Hina. Yeah, there is a Q&A box at the bottom, that if anyone in attendance wants to put any questions on what we've just been talking about, yeah, I'm sure Hina will be more than happy to answer them. Hina, would it be possible to get the slides for this, just so that we can share them with those that
I'll just make a note.
Thank you.
And my email address is in the slides. I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone about, how I can support yourself have got any tips, ideas for myself, and again, best practice sharing, I'm always really, really happy to do that. Shall I stop sharing my screen, Tom, or would you like me to keep it up?
No, you can take it down now, that's fine.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, anybody got any questions? I'm happy to answer them, or if you prefer to email me, I'll put my email in the chat, because I know some people don't want to answer questions.
Just while people are thinking about some questions, one of the things that really resonated with me from what was in your slides was the point about like trying to think back to what your why is and what your motivation is. I think that's something that a lot of the time is kind of people almost like compartmentalize their like thinking about their well-being and thinking about like the work that they're doing. I think that's a really nice way of thinking about actually they can feed into each other in a really like productive and nice way. Like you can kind of enrich and reinvigorate yourself by thinking about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I find that really important, and sometimes we don't make that connection in our heads of this is, for a lot of us, this work is a part of us, and it feeds our soul in a positive and sometimes a negative way as well. And sometimes by even writing your why, sticking it on your laptop on a post-it note really can help to remind you why you're doing what you're doing, because it is really easy. And I'll be honest, I have seen I see a lot of ego in when it comes to engaging in anti-racist work, and it's not about the I when it's about the we, because we're trying to create a better institution and overall a better society. And that's something that's probably not going to happen straight away for us. It's going to be for the generations after us. So it's about not the I. It really is about the we. Well, we've got a question here. Am I right to read them out? The question.
Yeah, go for it.
So we've got a question here saying, I get some abuse and slash racism sent directly to me, and also some that for safety reasons people send me screenshots, etc., as they are trying to help, e.g. because it's about my family. Do you have any advice on how to deal with this? First of all, I'm genuinely sorry that people are sending you abuse and racism directly. It's quite frankly disgusting and not acceptable on any level for people to be doing this. If you know who the perpetrators are, definitely report this to your institution. If you are unsure, still get some support. I think again, I'm not 100% sure what the setup is like at the university, but I'm sure you've got some sort of a student advice service either within the university or the student union. Go and seek some support and advice there. If you're wherever you're located at the moment, see if you can get some support and advice, if need be, from a counsellor, a therapist, mental health practitioner. And I think as well, depending on how this is affecting you, because it will affect everyone in different ways, if you feel comfortable, reach out and speak to people even in your academic departments, and you can say, look, this is what's happening to me at the moment, and it is having an adverse effect. Because again, sometimes because of the compartmentalization that we don't see it affecting our other daily lives, but it might be having an effect, but we just don't know about it. So I would say report it, kind of the three things: report it as if you can, if you know the person, but if you don't, I still think you should speak to someone from the SU, try and get some support from even from in terms of mitigating circumstances, extenuating circumstances, because I think it is really important. And if you feel you need to kind of express your feelings, you could be an artist. Sometimes painting about that might help. So you could be a writer, writing about that might help. Or it might just be a person where speaking to somebody in a confidential environment might help. So it might be a bit of trial and error to see what works best for you. But once you make contact with somebody at your institution, whatever institution it might be, I'm sure they can give you further guidance and the support that they can offer you. So thank you for that question.
Hannah, there's another question. A question has been popped in the chat from Louise. Can you see it?
Yes, here we go. On a similar note, how do you avoid burnout when you have influx of violent imagery to do with activism from friends on social media? Influx of violent Louise, sorry, with this, when you say influx of violent imagery to do with activism, do you say it in like a positive or a negative way? Sorry, I just wanted to clarify before I answer. As in, like, in terms of positive and negative, are they saying that, oh, this stuff is bad and, that's why they're sharing these images to raise awareness? Or is it like well, hopefully not, but in support of what those violent images are sharing? Let's just say it's the former, because I think it's a trend that we've seen quite a lot recently. We've seen, especially with obviously the recent killing of George Floyd in the US. I know a lot of people have said, can we stop sharing that video? Can we stop, sharing videos in general of our Black communities, our Black people being killed, because that is really triggering for our Black brothers and sisters and our Black friends and our Black communities, and we need to be really careful about that. So how to avoid burnout when you see it? Mute and unfollow. And if you want, again, this is completely up to you. If you want to engage and speak to your friend, depending on how close you are to that person, and say, look, this is the reason why that's triggering, and this is a reason why you shouldn't actually be sharing those images, you can totally do that. But if you don't want to engage in that, and there's no obligation on you to do that at all, I think on certain social media platforms, you can mute, unfollow, or even unfriend them. And if they ask you why, you can just say, you know what, the images were too triggering. The images, I just didn't like that, seeing that violent imagery on my timeline. And that's, to be honest, another point actually that I probably should have included in the self-care plan, is with your social media, be very careful who you let into your social media and who you follow, because we're on it a lot. And those images that we see daily can really have an impact on your psyche. I hope that answers the question. If not, put it in the chat, the Q&A, and I can try and answer it in a different way again for you. Oh, okay.
Hina, can I just add on to that and say, I've definitely experienced a lot of that on social media, especially with the recent protests in my country, Nigeria, and a lot of like police brutality and all of that online. And I can say definitely I'm guilty of like, soaking in all of the images, the videos and all of that. And I think what really worked for me was just, me taking time off and not feeling guilty about taking time off. And just tuning off social media, doing something that I'm interested in, or just sleeping and just relaxing, just away from all of that. So I think it's very, very important that even if it's a cause that you're probably interested in, or something that you're not interested in, whatever it is, A, do not feel guilty that you're not associating with it, and B, take time off, like Hina said, just try to tune off or mute those people. I mean, in the case of the protests that happened in my country, I couldn't block everyone because every single person was tweeting about it. So yeah, I think the best thing is just to stay off your phone for a couple of hours, get some rest and just take care of yourself mentally. And that's why I like the point that you mentioned about, self-care not just being about bubble baths and yoga. Sometimes it's just you just taking time off, clearing your head and just relaxing away from all of the noise, especially on social media, because it's very easy to get drawn into all of those conversations. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, 100%. Like it's very, very easy to get sucked in, because it's so accessible and so easy just to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. And it really does impact you. You don't realize until sometimes you've actually put down your phone and you're like, whoa, that's some really heavy stuff. And you know what? Create two accounts, social media accounts on a platform as well, if that helps. One where you engage with people who are like-minded and talking about these conversations, and one which can literally just be following funny animal pages or whatever works for you, meme pages or whatever it is, so you can have that separation. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, Toby, because it can hit harder than we potentially realize. Are there any other questions or anything else?
I had a question, something that we've probably not touched too much upon is in terms of peer-to-peer support. So take, for instance, in a team, maybe some people are working on anti-racist work or decolonization, and the other members of the team are probably working on other projects. How can we be good peers by ensuring that even if they're not taking that time out to take care of themselves, how can we be there and say, you know what, you need to that's all right, you need to take your time out and step back a little bit without it seeming like we're trying to undermine the importance of their work.
I think just check in on your friends as you would normally. I think, I remember when I used to work in student advice, I had a student come to me and they were so frazzled and they were like, I need to sort out this academic thing. And I was just like, before we even get onto that, when was the last time you slept and when was the last time you ate? Because before we get onto that, I need to look at your basic needs first of all and try and help you. So speak to, engage with these people as you would like your friends. Check in with them and say, hey, how are you doing? How is, one question my friend messaged me the other day and she's like, how is your soul doing? And I was like, whoa, that's quite, it was a Tuesday night. I was like, that's quite heavy for a Tuesday night. But it was a really good exercise in trying to make me think about, well, how am I doing within myself? And she said to me, give me one thing that makes your soul happy. And I was like, sometimes it's those random texts that you get from a friend or those random interactions where you actually get a lot of meaningful stuff out of it. And like you said, it's important again not to undermine and you want to avoid quote unquote like mothering these people, but it is just being like, how are you doing, how are things going for you, and ask, is there anything that I can do to help or anything that we can collaborate on when we're doing this work. And with peer-to-peer support, if there's any training that your institution can give you as well with supporting your peers. I know it's some institutions they do supporting your peers for their mental health, but even yourself, if you want to try and help more, do some things like mental health first aid training, so that again you can get to know, some of the triggers and the some of the indicators that people have, that might think, oh, you know what, that person is struggling and I might be able to help them. And just making sure that whatever advice that you give is done in a kind of a non-condescending way as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you.
Okay. Got another question here. What advice would you have if you feel that support services that you are trying to access as an ethnic minority are not culturally sensitive? This is something I'm so passionate about, honestly. If I was not working in this, I'd probably be back in student services doing this. You can start a conversation. As a student, you can speak to people and say, go to the EDI lead, or speak to your sabbatical officers and say, look, I'm feeling that I can't go to student services. What else can I do? And there's no easy solution. I'm not going to lie to you, but this is where potentially you need to seek support outside and look to those. I know that there are some, depending on where you are in the country, there are certain services that you can get support. I'm just trying to think of some now, and they've all gone from my head. But if you look on web pages, do some Google searches. I know that Mind have a section on their web page for BAME. That's their word and their use of it, not mine. For BAME, I think therapists and counsellors. So that's where you potentially do need to look outside to get that support more quickly. But if you feel up to it, definitely start that conversation about, okay, what training do these staff members have in being culturally sensitive and culturally competent in providing different support? And link up with the student union, get involved with them, a campaign again, so you can try and make sure that you can go to these people. Because I mean, it's something that it became really apparent when I was in that role. I was having a lot of students from ethnic minority backgrounds who were saying, I feel comfortable speaking to you because you're from the same or a similar background, and I don't want to go to counselling because I know it's all white. So it's something that's really important. And if you're passionate about this work, and you're doing psychology, become a counsellor, because we do need more ethnic minority counsellors in the field. So there's lots of different ways. Start the conversation, get support elsewhere, and if you want to be a counsellor, go forth and be, because we need you guys. Any other questions?
That looks like it might be everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Hina, thank you so much for coming in and joining us today on the first day of our Decolonize in Practice conference.
And I hope it was useful.
It really, really was. Yeah, it was a really, really great session. So thank you so much. Toby, have you got anything you want to say?
No, just to say thank you again for, hosting this session. I think you made some really, really good points there. And yeah, thank you.
No, thank you for having me, and I hope the rest of the conference goes really well.
Thank you very much.
And thanks everyone for engaging. Thanks. Take care. Bye.